to call a state of emergency, remove civic rights from this country, while having these individuals still in place. I don't think that is a strategic approach at all. Minister Sandy has failed, and that is obvious. The persons who are in government now were waving red cards in Parliament at Martin Joseph and were very much making calls for the Minister of National Security
at that time
to be dismissed. He didn't succeed. But the fact of the matter is, we never got to this point where, you know, it's a sad day for Trinidad and Tobago.
And that is one of the criticisms. That is one of the criticisms leveled against your administration. That maybe the administration should have gotten to this point back then, and therefore things would have been different.
Because there were many calls, Dr. Brown.
There were calls.
We called here for it.
I don't think those calls were solid at all. Let us examine what is happening right now.
Dr. Brown, at one point in time, we had gone over 550 murders, Dr. Brown.
No, well, what is the objective of what is happening now? I don't think it's connected at all to murders. You saw the Attorney General on the media last night congratulating the society, saying they were getting many calls and information was flowing in about where all these things were. Do you know how many guns that they've seized so far?
Well, we haven't given any official reports.
They have said so. One firearm. Callers are reporting a complete lack of searches, a complete lack of any of the activities one would expect under these conditions. It is my view that the government is doing yet another PR job in this country. They're saying, and it's sounding like decisive action, but when you are looking for results, when you're looking for clear objectives, no democracy gives up its rights lightly. You need to make a strong case. You need to make it well. The Prime Minister gave a very brief address when, in my view, she should have spoken for over an hour, explaining to citizens why this is being done, what are the objectives of this exercise or project, and most importantly, what will be the indicators of success. Let me tell you, 2 months ago, Gibbs and a whole entourage came into Diego Martin to do a town meeting to introduce a pilot project, policing in the 21st century. I stood up at that meeting and I asked him directly and Iwatsky, what are your success indicators? They said they had none. They hadn't worked that out. 1 month later, they made a big declaration. The pilot was a success, and they're going national. Up to this point, no one in this country knows why they declared that pilot project a success. Fast track to today, after a successful piloting and scaling up of a policing in the 21st century initiative, the citizens are told there's a limited state of emergency. They're lied to and told there's a limited state of emergency, and now everyone is unsure of their constitutional rights. That applies across Trinidad and Tobago. We are expected to sit back and trust the government, take this all on faith. And you see, when a country is desperate, and I agree with you, Tony, there's a degree of desperation out there. That's when we are most vulnerable and when we can be taken advantage of. It happened in the United States when the threat of terrorism and people were desperate. There was panic and rights were removed. And then you had unjust wars and so on. And without success indicators, anyone can stand up at any point and say, mission accomplished. And I predict that is what Kamala is going to do at some point, say mission accomplished, without having clear objectives, clear indicators of success. That is cheating the public of honesty.
Do you believe, Dr. Brown, that the citizenry truly understand what a state of emergency, what it represents? Because we're getting some people are not too certain of
Well, not in the least. And I think some of that confusion has been induced by the mangling of the job by those responsible for communicating this issue to the public. It began with the Prime Minister, and in her brief address, she spent some time trying to tell people that the state of emergency is contained within the Constitution, and therefore something about our founding fathers, giving people the false sense that the Constitution was still fully in place for the citizens. That was a job of deception, in my view, and very unfortunate right from the get-go. You have all of these ministers using this phrase, limited state of emergency when that is a fantasy in their own minds. If you read the President's declaration, it is quite clear. This nation is under a state of emergency. They have not made a distinction between areas under curfew and areas in which the security services have increased or emergency powers. That is very serious. It has implications with regard to the industrial situation in this country, and we know what the stakes are there. It has implications with regard to political gatherings and the ability of persons to worship.
But the Prime Minister says, Dr. Brown, that trade unions who are, we know they're protesting, can go about their business and carry on as normal.
But I think
this is not going on the Prime Minister's word, you know. This is going on what has been declared by the President and what powers are available. I don't trust this Prime Minister. This government started their term in office with one of the most heinous acts of deception against senior citizens, and they've continued. So the Prime Minister saying that, and the country being able to accept it with our national anthem forged from the love of liberty, I don't think it squares at all.
If it is that, was there ever a time during the last administration that you thought it was necessary, a state of emergency?
Not at all. I think it is
because because you said something earlier that you didn't think the cause was solid enough for a state of emergency at that time under Minister Joseph. And I'm wondering what would have made it.
I think we are again looking for a silver bullet or a knee-jerk reaction to solve what is a very serious problem. I think many of the thinking observers in this society agree that going after the small man or the person possessing a gun is not going to solve the violent crime situation in this country. And if you look at the decisions taken in the last few years, they were really designed to target the big fish, the drug lords, the persons who were bringing drugs and guns into this country.
But they haven't worked, have they?
Well, the OPVs won't even purchase. The immediate decisions of this new government, and we have to examine those, none of them can be considered a strategic build-up to this point. All of them must be considered steps in the other direction, and then all of a sudden you declare you've played all your other cards and you're calling a state of emergency. The cancellation of those OPV contracts, dismantling of SORT. They promised all along we're going to legalize, we'll bring a law for SORT. Suddenly, they came up with a decision they would dismantle SORT. The officers are on leave now. The SIA and what happened there. The police posts in urban areas, which are now under state of emergency, those police posts were removed. We have not been able to get answers to these things, and guess what? There is no parliament being convened at this time. And I think that is a very serious condition for our citizens.
But to what end, Dr. Brown, would a government remove all the security apparatus to achieve what? I mean, you know, I've read it, I've talked about it. They've removed the OPVs, they've cancelled off SORT.
You can't.
Yeah, but I mean, why would a government do that? I mean, I would think a government would want to be more secure. You're saying that they have done away with all these things to achieve what? To have a more violent country? That doesn't help them in any way, you know.
Well, there are one of two things. One is that they simply do not understand the task of governing this country, and they've really undertaken a mission that they are unable or incapable of accomplishing. Or two, there might be more sinister factors at play.
Like what, Dr. Brown?
Well, there have been many
I'm trying to make sense of
about the financing of election campaigns in this country. It's something I feel very passionately about, and I will be speaking on in the future. The financing of election campaigns, and huge sums of money were contributed in the build-up to May 2010, and there's been no clarity on where those sums came from. The fact of the matter is, you have to look at the decisions made by the government. Those decisions cannot be rationally explained if you are assuming that you're dealing with responsible persons in office. I want to make the call on this station for the immediate convening of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. These actions cannot continue. They should not have been initiated under these conditions, and they cannot be allowed to continue without Parliament being in session and the citizens having the opportunity to properly hold the government to account and to ask the pertinent questions, such as are being asked right now via the media. The Prime Minister stood up on the last sitting and she opened Parliament to close it. And since then, we've been getting mixed messages about the readiness of the Red House and the Waterfront Hall. I've made my own checks with the staff, and I can tell you that if necessary, a sitting can be held
At the Red House?
Immediately. So there's no excuse. People are referring to the 15-day quotation in terms of the Constitution. It is not necessary to wait 15 days to convene Parliament. That is an outside limit when a state of emergency is declared. It should be convened